Hello and welcome back to Mental Health Matters. This is episode 17. My name is Andrew Ditzel, and I'm excited for today's episode. Today's episode, we are going to start talking about the mental health trilogy. So, this is going to start a series of 3 weeks where we talk about social well being, emotional well being, and psychological well being. So, in today's episode, we are going to be talking about social well being, which I'm very excited for and looking forward to. We'll see you back here in a sec. All right, so like I just said here, we are going to be talking about social well being today in this episode. A huge piece of mental health that I didn't always focus on or I didn't always think about on a deeper level. Because, at least for me personally, I'll open up and share that I felt like I was always an extroverted person. And we're going to talk a little bit about the definition of extroversion versus introversion today. I always felt like I was extroverted because I always talked with other people. I always had conversations. I always wanted to go out. I always wanted to be around people. But as I grew older, I started to realize or learn what the definition of extroversion and introversion is. And it's really, how do you charge your battery? How do you fill up your tank in terms of your energy level? And what I started to realize is that I'm a little bit more introverted than I thought. And I'm actually very introverted. And the definition is what fills your battery? What, when you do it, charges you emotionally, socially, for your mental health? And like I said, I would always feel like I had to be extroverted because for me in my mind, maybe that was how I was raised and that was the way I should be. And how I should be talking to other people and how I should constantly be socializing and how that's the way to live. And I think in society, it's also an expectation of socialization having positive a positive effect, or it's the thing that's most socially acceptable. And I think as I grow older here, I start to realize more and more what's charging me isn't always the constant socialization and constantly being on and constantly being around people. But what charges me, what charges my battery, is spending some time in solitude and the importance of that solitude to be with myself. And it's helped me out tenfold. I've learned so much about myself. I've charged my battery, and I actually feel like I have more energy. And not the type of energy where I feel like in the past, I felt like I was almost on fire, like I was burning out and I was moving constantly and doing so much all the time that the energy I was running on an empty tank. Now I've come to this understanding about how important my socialization is on my mental health and the battery and how charged I am and how much energy I really do have. It really has a huge impact, and it's made a huge difference for me as I move forward here. And something I think about talking about burnout is teaching and how I thought, well, I'm going to be a great teacher. And I think I was a great teacher, but how how burnt out I got. And I'm like, why am I so drained right now? Why am I so tired? Why am I so exhausted? And something that I've talked about in the past with my brother, who's also a teacher, we talk about our social battery and relating this to teaching, where you make it through a full week. You're like, holy cow, that was a legit battle that I just went through. And him and I would both say on a Friday night, whatever we were doing after work that night, I can't even talk to anybody. I can't even, my social battery is at nothing. And to me, I was like, am I just being weak? Am I getting in my head? Am I just, wow, like what's going on here? And what I realized is my social battery was drained because, for example, the teaching profession, you got to be on all day, all the time. And that will drain your social battery. So, going back to the conversation of introversion versus extroversion, the actual definition is being an extrovert, you are charged or you are energized by being around people, by socializing. And introvert is the opposite, where you are charged or you're re upped on your energy by having some time of isolation, whether it be meditation, writing, reading, things like that. And I have learned that I am an introvert. And it's something that was hard for me to accept. And I think in therapy, especially, talking about the deepest parts of me and things that I have opened up about is accepting the things that you might not want to accept about yourself. And I've always wanted to be an extrovert. I always wanted to communicate and constantly be around and out and doing things. And through therapy and through looking in at myself honestly and authentically and realizing, well, maybe all that stuff that I'm doing, constantly being on, constantly being involved in so many different things and activities that it's not filling me up anymore. And actually, it never was. And I was just confused about what I was doing because I thought I had to do it. Or I thought I had to be out socializing all the time, or I was weak, or I was doing something wrong, or something wasn't right inside me. But all along, I think the truth was always there that I was more introverted. And if you're listening to this and you know me, you might be like, Andrew, what are you talking about? You could talk to whoever all the time, whenever you want. Maybe I could put on for it, and I've practiced my whole life being a fake extrovert. But what truly charges me is my isolation, my solitude. And with learning this, I know that almost might sound dangerous. Oh, solitude, isolation, that's unhealthy, depression. But through learning this, there is a balance because I could still go out, I could still talk to people, and I still do. And there's a lot of communities that I involve myself in where I'm able to balance a healthy socialization for myself because it is important to get out and do things, but also protecting my peace, my space, and my social well being so that I do have a charged battery. I can't tell you how low my battery was as a teacher for the past couple of years, and I didn't understand it. I was like, what is going on? This is my dream job. This is what I always wanted to do. This is who I always wanted to be. And now I'm here. What's going on? I made it. I did the things that I wanted to do and got to the place I wanted to be. And now I'm not fulfilled, or it's not making sense to me why this isn't working. Why am I so tired? Why am I so run down? There's something more. And that was the whole process of questioning what was going on within me, and therapy really helped me out. So, a quick story here that I want to share is when I was a teacher, I was talking to an administrator, and he said to me, Andrew, I was always growing up, I was super successful. I was great at sports. I got grades. I never had a tough time making relationships with guys, girls, a lot of friends, went to college, good grades, the whole deal. And those were his goals. That's what he wanted to base his success off of. And he said to me, you know what I didn't realize? I didn't realize that I was introverted. And when he said that to me, this was a couple years back, I almost froze a little. And I was like, and I think I froze because it hit a nerve for me that, holy cow, am I this fake extroverted person and putting on this facade? And am I actually introverted? And when he said that to me, it definitely hit me and froze me. And I was like, holy cow, is that what's going on within me? And of course, first reaction, deny, deny, deny. No way, that's not me, not me. I'm extroverted, I'm outgoing, I'm this, I'm that. I could hold up conversations and do this all day long. And like we've talked about in this podcast, the truth always comes out and the truth will always set you free. And what I'm learning more about myself, and maybe it is a little bit with my older age and growing, but that I'm more introverted than I thought I was. And it's something that connects so thoroughly with our social well being because it's extremely important to know yourself socially and putting yourself in positions that are going to protect your mental health. And I talked a little bit about community here and how that's extremely important. And for me, finding the positive and right communities to be a part of is extremely important for me and has helped my social well-being extremely. So church is a big one for me, and I've talked about it on here with my faith, with my relationship with God, and it's not only my faith or my relationship, but the community aspect that does so much for my social well being. And I could feel it when sometimes I don't want to get out and I don't want to go to church or I don't want to maybe work in a church group that I'm working with. That when I go and I do force myself to socialize because it's kind of against the grain for me, which I'm learning, it is so good for me. And it all stems from having that positive community that you are going to. What we call in therapy is a safe space, a place where you feel okay with, and you feel okay to socialize, and you feel positive about yourself, about the people you're around. And it's extremely important to find that type of community, whatever it might be. And everybody is different. I share my story on here and I talk about all these things and changes I've went through recently in my life. And in no way, shape, or form do I have any judgment of how anybody lives. For me personally, I'm filled up by church and going to church. If going out and partying and having fun is what fills you up, you got to find what works for you. I have no judgment against you if you're a churchgoer or a partier, if you're a library person or you're a sporting event guy or girl, whatever it might be. But finding that thing that is socially good for your well being is extremely important. And I think I was very confused my whole life, connecting the idea of extroversion with what I thought filled me up. I talked about on here, I love to party. I absolutely loved it. It was my favorite thing to do. It really was. I worked so hard during the week and I went out and partied on the weekend. And I started to convince myself that that was what filled me up. That was what gave me energy. But I started to realize I was looking forward to it. And then after I did it, I was feeling so drained. And I think there were some positive parts to it. And I still do enjoy going out and seeing people, but it's just a completely different way of life for me than what it used to be. So learning that and growing with that and realizing what environments do I put myself in to help my social well being, to protect myself. Maybe I get an opportunity for a certain event or a time or a place or a thing that I'm doing, and it's like, all right, let's actually think about this here. Am I just saying yes to it because I'm just going with it? Or is this something that's going to benefit me socially and charge my battery and really fill me up? So, that environment, that finding your place, finding your niche, I think is extremely important. And I'm slowly doing that for myself. And to be honest with you, it's very hard. And I don't like it about myself all the time because I'm changing my life. I'm changing my lifestyle. And I'm becoming someone who I didn't necessarily think I was becoming. And it's just the truth. And I think with learning about myself more and moving in the direction that is more authentically myself, that I'm tending to surround myself with different people, places, and things. And that's okay. But it's definitely very challenging for me. So if there's something that you might be going through and feeling like this isn't serving me anymore, or this isn't doing anything for me, matter of fact, it's only taking me away from where I actually want to be or who I actually am, maybe that's a question that you could ask yourself because it's definitely helped me out. Even as hard as it's been good for me. So, talking about socialization, a big, huge part of our socialization as human beings as we get older is our occupation. is our job. And I touched a little bit personally about teaching and my experience with teaching and how that drained my battery. And something that I talk about in therapy from time to time is let's do something or let's surround ourselves with something that's not going to empty our cup, but it's going to fill our cup up. And I think for me, teaching, excuse me, for teaching, it was emptying my cup. And what I'm realizing starting this new job where I've been there for about 2 months, about a little less, is there's much less socialization compared to teaching. And I absolutely love it. And I didn't realize how much my battery would be charged when I didn't have the constant socialization. And again, I think there's a balance to anything, that socialization is important because I still do talk to people. I still do have conversations at the new job that I'm at. But it's such a different level from teaching where I'm talking to kids all day or I'm talking to teachers, administrators, parents, and it's constantly being on. And that was draining for me. And I think learning this not only about external things, but those external things help me turn in and focus and look at myself and say, this is internally more of what I'm going through than what is actually happening. Because I know teachers who are super filled up. We talk about emptying our cup or filling our cup. I know teachers who are super filled up with their cup by being around students all day and having constant conversations with people. And that's great. Again, you got to find what works for you. For me, I've learned that I'm a little bit more introverted. You might be like, Andrew, you have a podcast. You're talking for 20, 30, 40 minutes straight at a time. This is actually something that I try to challenge myself with to open about my communication and get better with communicating and getting out of that introverted concept of myself. So, finding that stuff, finding what works for you. We talked about social environments, your community that you're in. Your job is a huge part of that. Your health is a huge part of that. How you have care for your own health. Are you in environments? Are you living in a place that is socially acceptable for you or socially works for you? Are you able to protect your peace and maybe find space away from people from time to time just to get that social battery recharged and get back to where you need to be? Or maybe, you know what, you're isolating too much and you need a little more. You need a little more connection. I think about this idea that someone talked about with me once, like, yeah, I live with my parents and I don't always talk with them all the time. But even when they're watching TV, maybe in the living room or wherever they might be, a parent or parents or brother, sister, I don't have to be talking with them, but just being around them and sitting there and having that positive community makes me feel safe and charges my battery. So that's just and there is so many different ways to charge your battery, but that's just a good example that I think of that, all right, we could talk about extroversion, introversion, but what actual activity is filling you up? What is charging your battery? And I think having a charged battery is an extremely important part of helping our mental health and talking about today our social well being. And again, I think this is all a balance. Just like anything in life, this is a balance. And I think I'm just growing up. I'm getting older and I'm learning for myself in particular what is going to fill me, what is going to charge me, and what is going to be good for me. And picking the places and being maybe a little bit more calculated with how I spend my time, where I work, the people I'm around, the activities I'm doing, the things that are serving me. I talk a lot, and I've talked on here about drinking and how, it gave me such a release. And I think that is the concept of it, that it does help socialization. It does give confidence to people, and it definitely did for me. I think that was a big thing for me getting out and drinking to relieve that, whatever it was, that underlying social anxiety or whatever anxiety I was having. And it was helping me out in the time, but wasn't serving me after because my anxiety was just worse after the fact. So learning things about that, learning things like that, and that's something that I'm still grappling with and understanding and trying to cope with my anxiety, whether it is social or just general anxiety, to get through that in a positive way. So something I'm still accepting and something that I'm still working on and is a work in progress, but I'm happy about it because I'm learning about my true self. And I think staying away from drinking, I've actually learned so much about myself in the past however many months that I haven't had a drink. And it's hard. It's challenging because you start to see parts of yourself that you didn't think were there, or you start to learn things about yourself that hmm, maybe I wasn't even ready to learn that. But it's something that I'm willing to do because I want to know. I want to know who Andrew Ditzel is. And I think I'm slowly learning that. So, to close up this episode talking about our social well being and how that impacts our mental health, I want to end with a Bible verse as I always do. And this is Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 and 25. And it goes like this: And let us consider how to spur one another to love and good works. Do not neglect to attend your assemblies, as some do, but rather encourage one another, especially since you can see the day approaching. So at the end there, it talks about the day approaching. That's Jesus coming again. But the idea in the beginning of this verse, where it says, let us consider how to spur one another to love and good works. How about we encourage not only, and I talk about this from a personal point of view, where I'm trying to do the best for myself and I'm trying to navigate this for my personal well being from a social sense. But this verse is saying, how about us trying to do that for other people? Us trying to be that for other people, encouraging other people. And for me, it's like I think about maybe I can encourage someone to come to church with me if that's what they practice and get them involved in a positive community. Or something that's been incredible for me lately is playing basketball. And I've been doing it on Friday nights, and it's such a positive community and great thing for me, and a substitute for what my Friday nights used to look like. And getting other people to that. And it's not only about me, it's not only about what I'm doing or what I can do for myself to make myself better, but how about bringing other people to these positive communities and positive things that are going to make us better for our social well being? So I thought that was a great verse. And I thought this was a great topic and a great trilogy to start up here. Again, I said in the beginning of this episode that we are going to have the trilogy. If you look up the definition of mental health is an umbrella, and the three pieces that are under it are your social well being, your emotional well being, and your psychological well being. So today's episode, we talk about our social well being. I opened up about maybe I'm a little bit more introverted than I thought, and learning about that and how that's charging my social battery. In the episodes to come, we are going to be talking about emotional well being and psychological well being. They're not going to be in the upcoming weeks because I think we're going to have some guests on in the mix, but that is what we are looking at moving forward here with Mental Health Matters. So remember, if you are struggling with something, if something is weighing on you, it is holding you down, it is constantly making you not the person that you are meant to be, reach out to someone and remember that you are not alone and that everybody is going through something, whether it's extreme, it's not extreme. Mental health, and I've said it before, I know I'm a competitive person in many things, but mental health is absolutely not a competition, and what you are going through does matter. Reach out, talk to somebody, and I hope that you enjoyed episode 17. We will see you guys back next time.